Hello, we're going to take notes, our second set of notes on hypotenuse, on the Pythagorean theorem about the hypotenuse. So let's get right into it. We're going to find the missing hypotenuse given a right triangle. Now we know it's a right triangle. We're going to use that information. Finding the missing hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is difficult to spell. Hypotenuse, hypotenuse. Okay, so this is assuming we have a right triangle, which means it's a triangle that looks like this. It has a right angle in it. And here is a leg. We went over this last time we talked. Oops, A and B. And then our hypotenuse will be C. Remember that the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle. And then A or B can be just one of the legs. We don't really know which one's which. But we do know something about it, that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. By the end of class today, you're going to have written that so many times you're going to be exhausted from it. Nonetheless, A and B are our legs. And I'll write that in legs. And this is our hypotenuse. And we can see that because it's right across from that right triangle, that right angle, I should say. Okay, I'm going to give you two examples. One of them is example 1. And here we have a triangle, and it's a right one. Let's see, we'll make this a right angle right here, and I'm going to make this 8 meters, and I'm going to make this 15 meters. And then we're trying to find our third side, or our hypotenuse side. So for this, guess what we're going to use? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Told you. You're going to hear that a whole bunch. So knowing that this is the case, this is a leg, we'll let A be 15, B can be 8. I know this is meters. You can always leave out the units and add them in at the end. I do that for myself sometimes. And then if we know that that's true, we know that we can write this as 15 squared plus 8 squared equals C squared. I'm just rewriting this equation. There's my A value. There's my B value. And then my C value is unknown. I don't know it yet. 15 squared is 225. If you don't have your chart handy, you can use a calculator. Or you might just know them. 8 squared is 64. And again, we still don't know C squared. We're going to put together this 225 and 64. I have to use a calculator for this. I can't do it in my head. 225 plus 64 is 289. So now you're in that weird situation that we've talked about before, where we have something squared equals a number. And to undo something squared, we have to take the square root of both sides. And when we do that, I'm going to use my square root button, which is right here. And it might be in a different spot on your calculator, but I'm going to push that one. And I get 17. The square root of 289 is 17, which means in this case, C is also 17. So now I know that my C value is 17, and we're going to go ahead and call those meters. 17 meters. All right. I'm sorry I'm making so many mistakes. It's the end of my day, and so I'm tired. We don't always get beautiful answers like 17. Sometimes we get decimal answers, and we'll talk about how to handle that right now. Again, we have to assume it's a right triangle or know it's a right triangle to be able to use this. We can't just use the Pythagorean theorem on any old triangle. It has to be a right triangle. So I'm going to draw you a right triangle right now. And in this case, all that I know about it is I know it has a 90-degree angle in it, and that the legs are 5 inches and 7 inches. So again, I'm going to be looking for this third side, the hypotenuse, or C. And here we go again. Our formula is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I'm going to fill in my A and my B. Let's let A be 5 inches, and B will be 7 inches. So when I write out my equation, it's going to say 5 squared plus 7 squared, 5 squared plus 7 squared, or A and B, equals, again, I don't know it, C squared. 5 squared is 25, 7 squared is 49. I don't know what that is yet. So I'm going to say 5 times 5. Oops, I don't want to do that. I already know 25 plus 49. 25 plus 49 is 74. So I'm going to write down here 74 equals C squared. And we're going to do that same thing we did up here. When we were left with C squared equals a number, we took the square root of both sides because there's some number, I don't know what it is, but I multiply it by itself and I get C, or I get 74 back. So that means we're going to take the square root of both sides. Square root. The issue with this one is it does not come out to be a nice number. It's not on our chart. So when I look at this and I have 74, and your calculator might look different, but you can press the square root button, and it gives me this number, 8.6023 blah, blah, blah. This happens to be an irrational number, but I'm going to go ahead and just round it to the nearest tenth, and that's what you're going to be doing on your activities for this week. Anytime you have an answer that isn't pretty, just round it to the nearest tenth. So in this case, 8.602 blah, blah, blah is closest to 8.6, and we're going to count it as that. So I'm going to say that C is approximately, that's what those squiggly lines mean, 8.6, and in this case it was inches. And I can go back up and label it here, 8.6 inches. And it's always nice to do a double check, like, well, is this the longest of all three sides? And if it is, then you probably did something right at least. But this is the final answer here. You're going to get some answers that are nice answers and some that don't look so great. But nonetheless, for our purposes on tests and quizzes, round to the nearest tenth. Okay? Tomorrow we're going to be learning about if we're given a hypotenuse and a leg, finding the other leg, finding the missing leg. But right now, we know the basics of the Pythagorean theorem. We also know how to find the missing hypotenuse, and we will work from there.